Adiza, and I'm currently I stay at New Brunswick, Fredericton. I'm a mom, so most of my activities before I moved here, I've gone to several rural communities in Africa, like in Ghana, and I've engaged with a lot of the community people and how I see what they are doing. So it's not like there is no enough education on preserving our environment or our ocean. But the problem is we have enough education on how we can preserve our environment and the ocean. But the problem is we don't have enough multi-language education. Like everything that we understand or we read is in English language. And most of the people that are being affected by issue of the environment and or the marine are people who are right at like people who stay right beside the ocean, and also people who live in rural communities. And these people, most of them don't speak or even understand the English language, right? So there is no enough education when it comes to educating people in languages that they understand. So as I said, I'm a mom, and so even with what I said, the reason why I do what I do is because of having enough information in languages that people would understand, like people in in the local community. That's what motivated me into putting more energy and more resilience into doing what I do. That's working with rural communities, working with people who speak different languages aside the English language. So I have a book, a children's book. It's in English, yes, but currently we are working on the French version. And that was why the reason why I even came to the library today, because I had a meeting, we're using their space. And also one indigenous language, Wolostoki from New Brunswick here. So yeah, that's what I do. Thank you too.
Well, thank you, Adiza, for sharing your insights and highlighting the importance of discussing environmental issues in an accessible and engaging way. I know you just said you're a children's author and you're making books for even outside the English language, which is very important. So that's very significant, especially for English or younger audiences, I should say. And it is vital for us to build environmental awareness in early as we can and inspire meaningful action for change.
So, Adiza, your work uses storytelling and communication to engage communities in ocean conservation. Why is storytelling such a powerful tool for helping people connect emotionally to ocean and climate issues?
Storytelling, one thing is before we got to where we are, storytelling was a way that people communicate, tell stories about the past events for the next generation, right? So storytelling has been there long before education, like secular education, became very prominent amongst all of us. And why storytelling is an important tool for how people connect emotional to ocean is because, so in my book, The Waves of Change, when you look at the book, the characters, one of the characters is an indigenous girl. The indigenous girl is a storyteller because we believe the indigenous people, they tell stories about their past, about the event that happened, and through that they tend to uh, transfer knowledge, right? And some of the stories they tell is how some of the ocean animals became extinct. So with storytelling, it helps to make it so understanding, like it's the complexity of maybe let's say scientific words and information. People rather tell stories based on their experience, and then people would be able to understand it, and then they can be able to remember, right? That's how storytelling is so important. And also, facts and then statistics are important, but stories allow people to see how environmental issues that affects like communities, family, and then ecosystem, right? We tell stories, people will tell stories on what is happening in the environment instead of writing articles. Of course, articles are very important, or the news is also important, but storytelling makes people also feel like they also belong to what's happening, right? The ocean can sometimes feel like distant to people who do not live on the coastal or marine environment, like marine areas. But through storytelling, we can make those connections like personal by sharing stories about fishermen, coastal communities, and then wildlife that depends on health in the ocean. So in my work, I found that stories inspire empathy and also it often leads to action. So I have an interview I did for people living across the seaside and also the fish, people that catch fish. That's when I was in Ghana. And they told stories about how people dump refuse in the sea and how when they go for like going to catch fish, at the end of the day, they get about 70% waste. So all these are stories that I feel like when people say it or they tell their stories, it makes the listeners kind of they also understand and they feel like they are connected to those issues. So like they are more likely to change people's behavior and then they support conservation efforts and become advocate for positive change. That's how I see it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Adiza. That's great. Storytelling is today is very important in terms of communication. It's all about how well we tell the stories. Right now, there are different webinars, educational programs going around how people can tell good stories. Thank you. And I do want to acknowledge the fact that you're a mother and as a woman, understand what it's like
Yes.
to have a baby and so I wish more empathy will be given towards women, the fact that they can do both. They can still with their children
Yeah.
and they can do the work that they do. So um well done. So I'm going to go to the next question for Adiza, right? You work extensively with youth through climate and ocean initiatives. How can young people play a greater role in shaping sustainable ocean futures and driving community action?
Oh, so one thing is with I always use my book as an example because I realize there's a gap between like how we can educate the kids like, or young people. And when we say young people, every region because in Africa we young people can be to I think is it 15 years or let's see if it's youth. But one thing is I work with very young people that my the age group is between 6 to like below 6 years, but my target is to 14 years. So for example, like I said earlier that we need to, like storytelling is important, but we can't just have storytelling because mostly when you have a conversation with someone's own language, assuming you're having a conversation with a French boy or an indigenous girl, and you're having that conversation in the language they understand, the language that they are born in, it's the conversation flows easily. The person knows what he or she is saying. So how can we have more young people play a role in shaping sustainable ocean? Is by having a lot of articles, a lot of materials that they understand and that is more familiar with them, right? Like my book, for example, is for kids. Mine because I have an agenda. I want young people to be involved in sustainable, like in shaping a sustainable ocean. What I did was I made sure the book is being translated into languages young people can understand and can interact with, languages that they were born in, right? So all these are factors that we can use to make sure that like kids or young people are part of shaping the sustainable ocean features. And also, I've seen how young people bring like creativity, energy, and a strong sense of urgency to conservation efforts. So we need to invest in like youth education, and also we have a lot of international events like the COPs, like the ocean conferences. We need to include young people into it. We need to have a lot of funding for young people, for them to participate, for them to see how it is done. But at the end of the day, I'm with ECOP Africa, I'm with their fundraising team, and it's hardly for you to see young people in. Even before we established the ocean literacy program, that was somewhere in 2022, 2020, 2022, we're working on it. It was very difficult for us to include young people because, of course, the UN has a target group that it works with, especially with group that like with Ocean Decade Program. It has an age group from 18 years and above, I think. So if we have event that includes very young people, right from a very young age, we've already instilled the love and the understanding of preserving the ocean into them. So it becomes very easy for them when they grow up, right? And they can start working on initiatives that can help sustain our environment. So I think that's what we can do, having a lot of materials in languages that they understand, not just English, also making them participate in events, and then okay, there should be funding for them, giving them the opportunity to participate in an event that they can see how it is done. And with that, it will even instill like passion and love for them to preserve the ocean. I think that's what I have to say.
Thanks, Adiza. So yeah, I hear you hearing a lot of in terms of when you say um the telling the stories in the language that the children understand, or telling the stories in the language that the youth understand, being able to translate the language into the story about the ocean, about the ocean into multiple languages so that they can reach more people and more people can know and participate with different events. And then you like said, opening up, creating opportunities for youth to engage in events, in webinars. Like we have a 30-day community challenge. So that's one of the ways. So that is in line with what you're saying. So we know we're on the right track, Adiza. All
Thank
right.
you.
Through your children's book, Waves of Change, you make environmental education accessible to younger audience. So why is it important to introduce ocean climate literacy at an early in life? Why?
Hmm. So, why it's important to introduce ocean and climate literacy. So I believe early education helps shapes values, attitude, and then behaviors that can last a lifetime. And we are being told whatever you teach a child, they turn up to grow with it, right? So when children learn about the ocean, climate change, environmental situation, but from a very young age, they develop a deep appreciation for nature and strong sense of responsibility towards protecting. So for example, with my kids, most weekends we go for a walk, like during like if there's no winter, we go for a walk. And because they are used to it, they like doing that. So most Saturdays, they are not 3 years old, but most weekends, like Saturday, they always want to go out to go and have a walk because they like it, right? So this is something that I believe if we should start introducing young kids or young kids about preserving the ocean and then about climate literacy, it really helps and it stays with them. So this is something that also I believe my book also came in because of course I want young people to be involved, to be part of the movement, which is like using storytelling. So the book, when you look at the book, I use three characters and they're all kids in it. So one of the characters is a French boy. His name is Leo. And there's a Mariam who is an immigrant. She's black. And then there's the first native who is Akia. So I made it look like every child matters, no matter like your skin color, no matter your immigration status in Canada, you all are involved to preserve our environment, right? So if a child, a black child or an immigrant child picks a book, he or she will teach someone who looks like him or her, right? So these are things that will inspire them to also take the initiative of preserving and then conserving our environment. Ocean literacy is not about like understanding marine ecosystems. It's about helping children recognize that their daily choices are connected to the health of our planet. In the book, there are a lot of activities, there are a lot of ocean hero activities, like what you need to do to preserve the ocean. There are a lot of quizzes about extinct animals, ocean animals. There are a lot of puzzles about about how you can spell some ocean animal words. So all these books are things that can make a child more livid, like he or she will be so interested in like involving themselves into protecting the environment. So I always use my book as an example because I believe it's a first step for us to introduce young people into loving and preserving our ocean. Thank you.
Thanks, Adiza, and thanks for writing that book. And in terms of introducing oceans and climate literacy, like the younger children, so like me, what I was taught when I was young, I still remember it now. And it's really shaped my life, the way I approach things. So the work you're doing is very, very important.